What's up, guys? Welcome back to Tidal Gardens. Salt choice, it's a really hot topic in the reef aquarium hobby right now. Years ago, there was only like a few different brands of salt, and they were pretty much commonly used by everyone in the hobby. But lately, there's been this explosion of salt mixes. And nowadays, people are always asking me, what salt do we use here at Tidal Gardens? The answer is Omega C's reef salt. We've been using them exclusively now for about 4 to 5 years. They are also the paid sponsor of this video, so I'd like to send a big thank you to them for their support of this channel. If you'd like to contact them to see what retailers in your area carry it, or have questions in general, you can email them at customercare@omegac.net or check out their website at www.omegac.net. If you do reach out, please tell them that you heard from me. Let's go over some of the reasons that I decided to go with Omega. First and foremost, Omega C is a local company here in Ohio. I like supporting local businesses when possible, and I like the fact that Omega produces their salt about an hour away from me. Now, I get it, this might not make much of a difference to many of you, but there are some serious logistic hurdles in getting large volumes of salt to your location. If you've been on this channel much, you probably know that I'm philosophically all in on frequent water changes. And on this point, I really put my money where my mouth is. Here at Tidal Gardens, we go through several pallets of salt each year. And let me tell you, when it comes to buying skids of salt, it's no fun to get huge freight bills. So the fact that they're closer, it's very, very nice. Also, Tidal Gardens is basically in my backyard, so I can't take a 60-foot semi-truck delivering stuff here. Omega C were very accommodating when it came to delivery truck sizes with the lift gate and all that. And I get it, it sounds minor, but I can tell you right now that not every salt place will do that for you. I know, like who knew that getting salt was like such a hassle? But anyway, in the past it was always a headache, and so Omega C, to their credit, really helped out here. What's probably going to be much more pertinent to you is the quality of the salt. Right now, we're living in like the golden age of this hobby, where we have access to some commercial salt mixes that are really good. And the reef aquarium community, for the most part, it's just nitpicking like really small details and differences between these various mixes. So let's go over some of those differences now. Omega C's reef salt is an anhydrous dry material. By going with a salt that uses anhydrous ingredients, you get 3 big benefits. The salt stays drier, it dissolves faster, and it produces more salt per unit weight. Okay, so first let's cover about the mixing. How well the salt mixes, it's really important. Omega C mixes clear. Some salts, and I'm sure you've seen some of these things, they leave a residue in the container. In the long run, I don't think that much of that matters, but I 100% do know that the average hobbyist considers that when making a purchase decision. There's just like something comforting to know that all the salt made it into solution, and there's no scummy leftovers in the bucket. Now, part of this might be because Omega uses pharmaceutical-grade reagents in their salt mix. The more pure your reagents, the better it's going to perform, and the less likely it's going to have those unwanted contaminants at the bottom of your bucket. One thing I noticed about this particular salt mix is that it's much finer and more powdery than others that I've used in the past. The bucket is also noticeably smaller than the other brands while making the same amount of salt water. This goes back to Omega salt being like an anhydrous dry material. It lacks that water weight and thus makes about 20% more per unit weight. Lugging around less salt for water changes is nice, but for a place like Tidal Gardens, which uses salt pretty much by the skid, it's also really helpful to minimize storage space needed in the warehouse. Yeah, I know, first world problems. What is far more important to the operations here at Tidal Gardens is how quickly the salt mixes. On this channel, we talk to a lot of guys with nice tanks. They've got really nice makeup systems, either to do the big water changes or have continuous water change systems. I wish I had something like that. Of all the aquarists that do water changes, we probably do it the worst way. Here you can kind of see us doing some siphoning of detritus that builds up in the bare bottom tanks. But this is not the bad part. Ideally, the new salt water would be mixed the night before and then brought up to the right temperature before doing the water change. We don't exactly have that luxury here because simply put, we ran out of the square footage for big water storage containers. So the way that we do water changes is to, after siphoning, remove about 150 to 200 gallons from the system's maintenance tub, and then mix the new salt right there. After allowing it to dissolve and clear up a little, we then just flip the return pumps back on, and then it goes back into the rest of the system. Clearly, this is not a good way to do this, and I would not recommend doing what we do. But this kind of shows that omega-C can dissolve and clear up within a few hours. The tanks obviously won't be crystal clear until perhaps the next day, but it still says a lot about the product that it can handle some pretty bad technique on our part. Alright, let's talk a little bit about batch-to-batch consistency. Long-term success in reef keeping, it's all about stability. You really don't want anything changing more than it needs to. Our reef tanks are dynamic by nature, so there's always going to be some tweaking of equipment and chemistry, which is kind of what makes the hobby fun and interesting. Now, what is not that fun or interesting is fluctuation in stuff that you weren't expecting, like the batches of different salts. As I mentioned, we're using Omega for a few years now, and as far as I can tell, we haven't had any crazy batch issues that are way off in chemistry. This is due in part to everything being done locally. Sourcing ingredients, packaging, quality controls, everything is done in the US. They're also very particular during that quality control phase about the particle size of the individual components. Each component is ground down to a uniform size before getting mixed in a temperature and humidity controlled environment. Lastly, they don't store raw inventory, so the salt isn't sitting around in a warehouse potentially getting exposed to the elements prior to shipment. Okay, let's talk about the chemical levels in the mix. Omega-C comes in two formulations, and we decided to go with the reef formulation, which has slightly elevated levels of calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. At a specific gravity of 1.026, the salt has 450 calcium, 1300 magnesium, and an alkalinity of roughly 8 DKH. The values are more or less what you see in the ocean, with the exception of calcium, which is a little bit higher. If you're wondering which version is right for you, first consider your bioload. If you have a low bioload of corals, elevated levels can actually be too much of a good thing. If anything, it's better for the salt to be lower rather than higher for the major and minor elements. Why? Because if your water chemistry is consistently testing too high, and it continues to climb with every water change, how exactly do you go about remedying that? The answer is certainly not by doing more water changes. Raising values that are too low, it's far easier than lowering them once they're too high. So again, consider your bioload of stony corals. Alright guys, that does it from here. Thanks again to Omega. They are the paid sponsor of this video. If you have any questions for Omega-C about the availability of their salt in your area, don't hesitate to contact them directly at customercare@omegac.net or on their website. Okay, so for you guys at home, have you tried Omega before? And if you have not, tell me what salt that you're currently using. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell button, aka the real subscribe button. Alright, happy reefing everyone. Until next time.